Hello everyone, welcome back to MiniTerrainDomain. Tonight with session 3 of Convergence. We are back on Tantharra, the desert hot side that is in eternally daylight. I'm very excited to get back into this. Hopefully all the drama and the juicy RP continues. I know it's going to. So I'm very excited to get to that. Before we do, however, a couple points of business. First and foremost, if foul language and immature humor and mature subject matter are problems for you, then do not watch this game. Just seriously, I would not recommend it. With that out of the way, MiniTerrainDomain has 2 partners, the first of which is Jasper's Game Day. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, next month they are having a Jasper's Game Week, which will be largely hosted here on MiniTerrainDomain's Twitch channel. So make sure to stop by for that. I think it's May. I'm fairly positive of that, but double check with the people in charge. It's not me. The other partner is Initiative Coffee Company. You can type !coffee and it'll bring up the relevant information about them, as well as a bag of coffee that you can order that is MTD themed, interestingly enough. I don't know what MTD tastes like, but apparently that's it. So there you go. There's also a sponsor, Talon and Claw. They make fantastic wooden RPG supplements, aids, props. I don't know exactly what you would refer to them as, but things like dice vaults and GM screens and rolling trays, all kinds of really beautiful stuff over there. I believe MTD Claw is a code that you can enter over there to get a percentage off of your purchase. So go do that. Show them some love. Cool. Of course, yes. As always, you type !help in the chat. It will bring up numbers that you can contact or text, as well as a hyperlink to numbers that you can text or call throughout the rest of the world. If you need somebody to talk to, mental health is tough to handle on your own sometimes. And sometimes having somebody to talk to, just to listen, can make all of the difference in the world. Just the other week, I lost someone not particularly close, but someone who was from my past to suicide, and it really made me kind of stop in the middle of the day and really kind of think a lot about a lot of the people that I have lost to suicide through the years, and how heart-wrenching that always is to go through. So if that's something that you find yourself contemplating, just reach out to someone. There's always people who are there willing to listen. So please find one of those numbers and call someone. Okay, I don't think that there's anything else that I need to go over before we get started. So I'm going to pass things over to my players so that they can introduce themselves, all that kind of stuff, and then we'll begin. So we're going to start with Jackson.
Howdy, folks. My name is Jackson Johnson, and I am so happy to be back for another game of Convergence. I represent the group Initiative Entertainment, where we have just launched our new podcast, Maelstrom, a high seas epic adventure set in a post-apocalyptic world. We are playing on most podcast apparati. I'm currently working into getting us to play on Apple Podcasts for all you Apple Podcast listeners out there. But if you're wondering where you can find it right now, you can definitely find it on Spotify right here in the chat that I just posted. Check us out on Spotify or wherever you want to listen to your podcasts. I will be playing Thabanon Al-Seem tonight, a half-elf warlock of the Saiyans, and I am doing so much emotional gymnastics in my brain right now to transfer from playing Hodge to Thabanon again. This ought to be a very interesting night. I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks.
I'm definitely going to be looking out for a little bit of Old Hodge coming out in Thabanon, which is going to be fantastic. I'm here for it. Excellent. Next, M.
Hi everyone, I'm Em, and I run the YouTube and Twitch channel Dice on Ice, so you can find me there. And I'm running Curse of Strahd. Maybe. They TPK'd last session, so we'll see. But anyway, I'm playing Matto, and yeah, super excited to get back into it.
Excellent. One of the things that I love about games like Dungeons and Dragons is death never has to be the end. A lot of times that's when very, very interesting stuff starts to happen. So hopefully that all plays out well, especially in a place like Barovia. Like, holy hell. All right. Next up, we have Austin.
Hello. Nothing to plug. Just excited to be here as always. I am Austin. I'm going to be playing Arrath tonight. I had to think about that for a second. I am, I don't know. I'm just excited to get back into it. I don't really have a whole lot to add today, to be honest. So kick it over back to you.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Next, we have Matt.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt. I run a YouTube channel called A Fistful of Dice, where I used to run games, but I'm taking a break at the moment. I also am a partner over at Absolute Tabletop. We just published the Mecha Hack Mission Manual that is now widely publicly available. It's on DriveThruRPG as well as the Absolute Tabletop web store. If you like big stompy robots and lots of fun stuff like kaiju and spaceships and things like that, definitely go check it out. And it's chock full of great missions as well. So tonight I am playing Okex, who is a 6 foot tall cockroach. So this should be a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Yeah, man. Love Mecha Hack. Love, love, love. I'm actually going to be running that next month in a one-shot where I'm using it to run Mad Max. And I'm very, very excited because I think it's going to be a fantastic fit. I'm really excited. And yeah, I devoured everything that was presented in the mission manual so that I could pull ideas out of it. So very excited for that game. All right. Last but certainly not least, Karen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen. I have a YouTube channel called Myth and Gears, and I, too, used to run games on it, and I'm also taking a break. I'm following Matt's footsteps because, you know, he's cool. Tonight, I get to play Dar Shepsa. He's a Dwarven cleric, otherwise, and also, I forgot to mention this last time, he's an Hartusian of this world. And what that is, maybe we'll find out at some point. Back to you.
Maybe. All right, so I don't think there's anything else to go over. We can play some D&D. Oh, tonight's episode is called The Burden of Youth. I don't know if it matters or not. We'll see. Another die. Oh, thank you. Sabbath. Take care of that real quick before I launch into my spiel, that I don't forget. 34 domain dice. Don't forget to use those, guys. Oh yeah, domain dice. I guess it would help. If you sub, gift the sub, resub, donate, cheer, etc., they get domain dice. And they can use those to have advantage if they spend 1, or they can give me disadvantage by spending 2. I think that's everything. Okay, everybody leveled up to level 6, by the way? Yes? Good. Sweet. All right, then let's begin. There is rarely a more difficult journey than that of youth. You must discover who you truly are, independently and individually, while also discovering your place within the world itself. Knowing where to find your truths is the test. You will grow, but into what? Values are caught, not taught. So the best thing you can do is to surround yourself with those who display values that you admire. Sine and the child have both survived the attack of the scorched witches of the wastes. Furthermore, it would appear that the child seems to be entirely unscathed by the lightning bolt that killed Azidakut, his father. In the moments after this assault, the dust, the sand are still settling. There's parts of the tent that are still probably falling over and collapsing. All of you probably still have your weapons drawn at this point. There's a moment, at least, where Darshepsa and Sarath, your eyes met one another. So, as we're going through this scene of the aftermath of this battle, at the very least, I'd like to hear a moment between the two of you.
So I imagine Darshepsa he has just saved, I forgot her name. Sina? The woman, the mother.
Sine.
Has just saved Sine and is looking up to where her husband to be is lying. And I think there's a woman that's over his body. And right away, he doesn't recognize her right off the bat. Her back is to him. But he just kind of looks over that way and is feeling just a little, I guess, pity for this woman, knowing that he's not able to save this man that she is mourning over.
Sarath comes in fairly quietly and kneels at the side of Azidakut, not even fully taking in all the rest of the surroundings, with a bit of sadness in her eye, looking down at him. And she looks up and catches your eye and realizes who you are, standing there or kneeling there next to the still panting, just revived woman. And Sarath, for just this brief moment, almost seems to forget what she had walked over here for, and she smiles just a little bit. I did not think I would see you, maybe ever.
And I think it's the voice and the eyes. Darshepsa just he almost kind of reels back a little bit. And very quietly, you can barely hear it. He's like, Sarath, that is you?
Looks down, here to celebrate my cousin. Now, I suppose, here to mourn him.
He was your cousin. And with that, he'd come over and awkwardly go to touch your shoulder, but then stop. And his hand just kind of hovers probably about an inch from your body. He won't touch you. I'm so sorry. I could not save him as well. You're muted.
You would know that's generally been her outlook on a lot of things, especially with all her time in the desert, that just sometimes things die and you can't do anything about it. And the sadness is something that she controls, and it passes rather quickly.
He's very awkward at this point. He's looking at you. You can see, maybe others can see, that there's definitely a tension in his body. He's wanting to hold her, to comfort her, yet is refusing to do so.
After just a brief moment of that, Sarath will kind of shake her head and she just hugs you, just like a full embrace. Like, it's good to see you again.
And he goes stiff as a board at the touch. And he's and then he just kind of does that whole very awkward kind of hug back, pat you on the back. But his words belie what he's feeling, and it is so good to see you. I have missed you.
Sarath, it's the closeness of this embrace that has brought you kind of into the area that is affected directly by Darshepsa's Dreadsteel mace. Wherever that is hanging about his person, you can feel this cold radiating away from it. It's not the kind of coolness that comes from water or shade. It's a coldness like in your bones, almost. This creeping chill.
She tries very hard not to react to that feeling, but she just can't quite avoid pulling back just a little bit when that starts to creep in and get to be a little too much. And she glances down to see the thing hanging at his side, and her face grows just a little more grave. I see you have committed fully to your faith.
Yes. And with that, he kind of stands away a little bit, remembering who he is and where they are and who's still around them. Yes, I have. I can't hear you.
I'm happy you have found your path.
With that, I think a rare smile would actually pass his face as he's taking your words at face value. Thank you. I hope you have found peace, somewhat.
You hear like a little like squeaking and see this little bit of movement underneath this long kind of sandy colored robe that she wears, and this little creature starts to kind of crawl up like from like a pouch at her side, and it pops up and she goes, I have found my own forms of companionship, as this sort of monkey hawk climbs up onto her shoulder. And it's we have a name for it. It is a Sakara. And it's like it looks like a little tiny monkey with like hawk wings and kind of a little bit of a beakish face.
I'm glad you are not alone. You walk a solitary path, and I worry for you sometimes.
She smiles warmly at you, but doesn't say anything.
What about the other three of you? In the aftermath of this battle, what are you doing?
Mato has run to Sine's side. And his brows are furrowed, like he is still trying to understand what has just happened, because it happened so fast. in an instant, and he reacted and he didn't have time. And now I think Sine sees that he is beginning to come down from that adrenaline, and seeing him just working through everything as his brows are furrowed and he's staring at the child and then at Sine. He is avoiding looking at Azedakut, though.
Yeah, Sine
Are you
is,
all right?
She's beside herself. You know, just emotions running the gamut from one end to the other, and she's sobbing, with the form of Azedakut basically laying across like her legs, at the foot of the bed, and she looks up at you and she shakes her head, and you can see she's trying to find words, but they're failing her.
Yeah, he just nods and he kind of shakes his head. He's like, that was a stupid question. And he kind of looks around. But we need to go somewhere away from here.
Where are we going to go?
And he's looking for the king, or her father.
Yes. Oh, what is his name? Bakata? I think it's Bakata.
Yeah, the chieftain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Akata. He's like looking around for him, and just we could load up. We could get out of here. But it won't take long. And he looks at like the destroyed tents.
Bakata is not far away, kind of returning now, and it appears like he seems to have been wounded during the battle, but not grievously so. Some kind of like superficial wound upon one of his thighs or something. And he's approaching. When you kind of look around for him, you spot him. Is Mato, thank you for being by Sine's side. I don't know what to do. People are running scared. Seems the truce might not hold.
We need to leave now.
I've already begun the process. They're backing up the camp. We'll return to our homes, but the child, Mato.
We need to leave, he says again, but looks down at the child, and then to the others who are standing by. Or else this child will not make it out of here.
Shepsa would, hearing this and the child, and knowing that it's supposed to go to the gray, would step forward to Mato and kind of give that like a bow. If you would permit me, I am Hartuzian. I know the mists a bit. Let me accompany you.
See Mato give you like this uneasy look, and it's the exact same look he gave you when you bumped into each other, at the celebration. It's that exact same just unease. But he looks to Bakata and Sine with like a small nod.
Sine definitely doesn't seem to be in any condition to fully comprehend what's transpiring. She definitely seems to have emotionally kind of checked out, almost like she's just in shock, and isn't quite processing everything. But Bikata is doing his best to try to maintain, that kind of cool-headed leadership role that is expected of him. He looks at Darshepsa and he says, "You are a Hartusian?
I am, sir.
Do you know your way to the Grey?"
I do. I've spent many years by the Grey, traveling in front, behind, beside. I know its ways.
All right. So be it. Then it is a good idea for you to accompany them. And keep an eye on them. And he kind of turns and looks in Thabinon's direction.
As you wish.
This child is my kin, and his father is dead. I know the deserts. With this many people, we must travel carefully. I will accompany. And she doesn't state it as a question. That is just a statement of fact that she is now laying in front of them.
I imagine Thabanon had come back from the brink of losing Sine, the woman whom he loved all his life. And seeing her alive has brought him a sense of relievement. And he stands near her as she's knelt over the dead body of her beloved. What was his name again? Forgive me.
Azidakut.
And Thabanon looks over Azidakut, and there's a lot of conflicting emotions in seeing this dead man at his beloved's feet. He was planning to kill him in any case, but seeing him lost like this is different. And I'm actually gonna roll the dice here. But Thabanon cannot help but sneer at this fallen foe. The one, as far as Thabanon was concerned, this was just a man who stood in his way. And he looks over at Sine weeping. And he cannot help but think, even as she is in her deepest sorrow, she is still beautiful. Even as tears fall down her face, as she weeps, as she suffers, she is beautiful in his eyes. And he reaches out towards her to touch her shoulder, but then stops. And then he pulls back slowly. And then he looks down at her child. And all he sees is another thing in his way. And he realizes that he would very much like to oversee its journey to the Grey. And he looks back towards Bikata and says, "I will join this expedition. Okex and I have journeyed all over the Scorched Wastes. You will find no better guides."
Okex has been keeping their distance, sort of standing restlessly on the outskirts of this exchange. They seem unnerved by the battle that just happened, and these strange, multifaceted eyes are kind of roaming around looking for more danger, sensing the heightening tension, not just in the group before them, but just the camp at large, as the truce may not hold. As Thabanon mentions Okex, Okex would incline their head towards Thabanon and then to the king, and Okex would point with this strange sort of four-digited hand, but there's two thumbs on either side, and they would point to Thabanon and then to themselves, and then they would make this sort of walking motion, which is a phrase that Thabanon and Okex often share with one another, which is, where you walk, I walk.
Bakata looks to Okex when he's signing this and nods, and then turns back to Thebanon and kind of lowers his voice as he leans in. If it were up to me, you would not be going. But it is not up to me. My daughter has requested that you do this. It is her wishes I am honoring.
See that you do, old man. You and I do not see eye to eye, but we can both agree. And Thabanon looks back to Sine. She is the most important thing to us.
You can hear, like, the knuckles in his hands, like, popping as he's tightening his fists at his side. Let me be clear on one thing. Exile. When you leave this camp, you leave my daughter's life forever.
If it comes to that, old man, one of us will be leaving your daughter's life. And make no mistake, I have no intention of returning to your festering wound of a tribe.
Good. He turns and he leaves. Arrath. At some point, immediately after this battle, a Kalba comes out of the bustling crowd. She has, well, I was going to say blood, but she has sand and things all over her. Clear that she was involved in the fight to some extent. And she makes a beeline straight to you. Arrath, we must talk. Come.
Arrath hesitates a moment. Does she just like start walking, or does she just like, how does she?
Yeah, absolutely. She gets close enough to basically say that to you, and then turns and heads kind of to an out of the way corner.
Yeah, Arrath will say very quietly, but in about the loudest voice she generally can muster, "We can speak here."
She turns around and somewhat straightens her stooped frame in kind of like bristling at your defiance. But she looks at you and she says, "Very well. If you wish. I suppose we will do it your way, as always. I am not certain that I am comfortable with the idea of allowing my two closest heirs to both leave for the Grey. My great-grandson," she indicates the child, "and my great-niece. She indicates you. Perhaps one of you should stay behind.
Sarath hesitates for a moment, and she says, "Perhaps I was hasty. Let us speak outside." And she starts to lead out herself away from the rabble. And as soon as they're out of earshot, she says, "I know we have not agreed on much, but I can assure you, I have no intention of abandoning this baby to the mists. I will see what happens. I'm going to protect this child."
So you would turn your back on your tribe a second time. Walk away from your duties again. Choose that dwarf again.
Why would you even come here? Why would you associate with this vermin? I know how you see them. I know who you are. Fine, you want me to go throw a baby into the mists. This is how you treat your heir. Then I am not your heir. If you think that... She hesitates for a moment. I will do this one thing because it is the will of my people. But after this, I do not know you. I do not wish to know you. You are not my family. You have no ability to compel me to stay. I am going. And she turns without waiting for a response.
She calls after you, repeating words that you have heard her say before. I mourn the elf that you should have become.
Sarath stops at that, and she turns on her heel, and she stares at Akalba and takes a deep breath to try to quiet the rage that induced. And all she says is, "You are a hateful old woman, and you will die alone, without family, without friend, without kin, without anyone to mourn you." And then she just leaves. She doesn't wait to see if that hits.
So the decision to take the child to the Grey remains. You know that the journey will take a week. Darshepsa, you know, in fact, that the swell should be passing just before you would reach the mists, which is strangely auspicious once again. What preparations are all of you making to actually set out on this journey?
Thabanon, first thing, he walks up to Okex and just sort of motions to him, indicating, like, "Are you good? Are you fine?"
Okex would do kind of this halfway between a nod and a shaking of a head, just sort of this sort of motion, and pat their Paduva knife at their belt, sort of saying, "I'm not okay, but I have my knife."
Thabanon will nod, and then he'll look back to the rest of the group, Matto, Darshepsa, and Sarath, going about their business. And he will look to them and look back at Okex and just go, and then he will place his forehead against Okex and go, which is the I like to think is the sound that Okex taught him that translates roughly to the shared commonality that members of a hive, of a Thrycreen, share. It's reflective for them of family blood brothers. And he'll then say, make preparations you need. I need to go. And Thabana will go and look for a private place.
Mata would return to his tent of where he was intending to stay, and just gather his items. Maybe even take down his tent. He's not bringing it, but just to help with the getting away of or the inevitable pack up and leave. And it's more of a promise to himself that he will be coming back, so he leaves a few items behind to leave with the others to pack away so that he can find them when his journey and his duty here is done. So he just takes what he needs, the bare minimum. I think he would have a smaller tent and just like a smaller pack for when they would go out to trade with the other tribes. So he would take that.
Arrath would head back to her Badoshi and her tent that she has set up in her little dugout. She packed the tent away, but like as she's packing it away, like she's just got this one side slung bag, and she like opens the flap and she starts like packing it in, but she's packing like the whole tent and all of these sticks and things, and it's just completely like, and then she kind of like pats the bag down and it just gets into this like nice little like package that she sort of plucks at her side, wraps her cloak around it, and she mounts up on the Badoshi, which seems to be very like lightly burdened, like there's almost nothing on it.
Darshipsa spends most of his time with the mother and the babe, getting the babe ready, doing what we need to do to carry the child and supplies, etc., for that particular burden. And he would make sure to, before they're ready to leave, that he would go to that the little makeshift temple that had been made for the wedding, for the ceremony, and pray. I forgot the name of the god. To Quena before heading out. But he's kind of taken it on himself that he would be the one to hold the, I'm assuming still crying baby when he's around.
Every time Darshepsa is around, the babe absolutely bursts into fits of tears and screaming. And according to Sine, that's the only time that he's made that kind of a fuss. But despite that, she seems to be reluctant but trusting of Darshepsa. She informs you, Darshepsa, that the child's name is Dahayuma. Yuma for short. She explains to you that she knows that this is the child's name because the child told her so.
He just kind of looks at her, gets kind of that the quizzical. It's not that he doesn't believe her, he does believe her, but he's seen and heard weird things. He understands, but having the child say so is what's giving him pause a little bit. She is an elf, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Does this have meaning in your tongue? This name?
It is not a name that I'm familiar with. No, I'd never heard it before.
And when did the child tell you?
It seems as if... Forgive me if this sounds strange, but it sounds crazy whenever I say it. When I died in the fight, just the moment before I was able to awaken again, before I came back to life, I can't explain it. Forgive me. It's not making. I'm not making any sense.
Oh, you make perfect sense. That is when the veils of the worlds were open to each other. You had crossed temporarily, and so we're in both worlds. Explains much.
You will see that his journey is safe. That he doesn't want for anything.
I will do my best.
And if you could, please make sure that Mato and Thabanon do not kill one another.
Yeah, he takes probably a much bigger breath in and sigh out. I will do what I can with that as well, but that will be up to them.
She doesn't seem overly at ease with that.
Yeah, Darshep's is not very much at ease either.
Okay. If nothing else remains, then the five of... Oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I was waiting my turn. Okex would spend a good amount of time just sort of hanging out around the tent and like watching the different ways that people interact with this baby. This is a very strange thing for Okex. Okex grew up in a culture where not very many hatchlings make it. And this sort of like fanfare, this mission to escort this single infant to the gray is confounding him a little bit. But they're trying to understand. And so they would just watch and listen and maybe even take a few steps closer, realizing that they've never seen an elf baby before, and like kind of cock their head, like looking over people's shoulders to try to get a look at it. And they would mentally sort of, yeah, I guess that's pretty cute. And then Jeremy, I don't know if something like this would be possible since a battle broke out here, but there were lots of merchants and people sort of hawking wares when we arrived. Would there be any sort of like map maker's tent, like cartographer, like any way that I could potentially look and see if there are maps of this area? Even just basic rough landmarks would be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. You could certainly track down something like that easy enough. Again, the amount of merchants here would have rivaled any established city during like a festival. Effectively, that's what was going on here. You know, when they killed this Caldevan and were sharing the bounty of that kill. merchants from all over the place had traveled here, so there would easily be those kinds of things to find, for sure.
Sarath would probably want to get a couple things, just like another piece of that sort of cloth, like cloak material to cover the child, to help with camouflage. Basically a couple things for the baby, like something that like I don't know if they would have, like, there'd probably be some sort of thing to like tie a baby to your front or back. So maybe like one of each of those for whatever situation we wind up in, and she'd throw them in her bag.
Perfect. Okay. Stupid Tekini, we stole the baby while you were taking a wee.
Stole the baby!
You know that when you are drunk, I lead the way. I can't wait for that series. So excited. All right. Okay, so all of you go about collecting your various effects, whether you're traveling lightly or whether you're ladening yourself with a lot of extra gear in preparation. You meet back together to get ready to leave, to depart. And all of you, perhaps not all of you, but I would say most of you, are likely surprised whenever you return to find Yuma, the child, the boy, is walking.
Ew. Gross.
Sarath does like a double check of the sun to like make sure that it's in the right position for the time of day she thinks it is, because she's kind of worried that she has like sunstroke and she's having some sort of a hallucination, or like she lost time or something. But it all appears to check out, and she like just steps back watching this thing while
Fabinon is like looking at him, and then he kind of looks over at Okex like, are you seeing what I'm seeing right now?
Okex would nod approvingly, as Thrycreen babies usually get up and walk within seconds of hatching. So to them, they've sort of been waiting for this to happen as a late bloomer here. So
Yeah. So Fabinon sees Okex nodding, and then just looks back at the baby and does the equivalent of whatever like the cross over the heart is in freaking Tantharra culture.
Imagine this kind of happened when Darshepsa went to do his prayer, because it was a babe and he was getting ready for a babe, and then he comes back and it's a child, and time takes a double take, but almost like cocks his head and just interesting. Can you speak?
Yeah, Mato just. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You'd say to the child, can you speak?
The child looks straight into your eyes, Darshepsa, and starts wailing.
I take that as a no. And I would turn and go.
As the child is wailing, you can see that the child has teeth coming in.
Mato comes in, and I think he stands beside Darshepsa. I'm not a father, but that isn't supposed to happen.
It's not normal, no. But I don't think there's going to be anything normal about this one.
Mato starts like trying to like count the numbers in his mind of like, okay, if the baby is now a toddler in this amount of time, how old is he going to be in a week if he keeps growing at this rate? Are we going to be taking an old man to the grave and not a baby?
That's a very interesting question, Mato. I do not know the answer to that one. But what I do know is that the bedding and the supplies that I have just acquired are not going to be enough. They're far too small. Excuse me. And he turns to go get more.
Mato looks down at the baby and just kind of crouches down and just kind of looks, like squints into this child's eyes. See if he reacts. Just not saying anything.
Kind of like looks at you, kind of reaches out and like pokes your nose in your cheek a little bit.
Mato is going to fly back, like just like back on all fours and just kind of like looks. Can you speak?
You notice as you kind of like scramble back that this child has your stone bird in its hands. And it's like bouncing around.
No. Hey, give that back. And he's like gonna start like chasing after.
Turns into a game immediately.
Yeah. Mato is only half playing as he legitimately tries to get this bird. But toddlers, they're surprisingly fast and strong.
Very speedy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think he's chasing after this child, and he takes the bird, and he maybe a little too forcefully is going to take the bird out of this child's hands.
And as you do so, the kid looks up at you and goes, Mato mean.
He like points at him. Gotcha. You can talk. And you know my name. He looks around to see if anyone else is here to hear this.
Yeah, Arrath is standing by watching, I think, because I'm just watching this whole thing play. Like, Arrath is standing just mouth agape, like, you heard this too. It's not the sun.
It can talk.
She'll go down and like she'll get on a knee in front of the child. Tell me your name.
Dihayuma.
Who gave you this name?
He shrugs.
Do you know where we must take you?
Shakes his head.
Are you ready to leave now? Arrath will sit back up and turn to Mato and say, I think this is much, much bigger than we thought it was. And we should leave as soon as possible.
Mato nods and then, well, on the bright side, we'll probably be killing a man when we bring him to the grave, which is a lot better on my conscience than killing a baby. He just walks away.
Yeah, Arrath will just kind of keep like peppering the kid with like little questions, just trying to see the response. But
Mato has walked away, and Arrath, you can see that the child has that little petrified stone bird again in his hands, and he's like now kind of running and climbing on things and, you know, making this bird kind of fly around the room, and is talking to the bird.
Yeah, Sarath considers trying to get it back and just decides that's beyond her pay grade. So she's just gonna kind of observe the child and try to keep him from like running off anywhere.
Darshepsa would like to acquire a Badoshi for the soon-to-be not child person. It's a feeling that it'll be needed before too long.
Okay. So
would a
go ahead.
Zedekut have one that was his Badoshi?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think Sarath would try to ask if they could take that one.
Yeah.
It only seems right for it to pass down to his son.
I agree. Okay. So you've gathered your things, met back up, and gathered Yuma, the child, and are ready to set out. So there's a few things that become very apparent as you travel this first day. The first
Are we
of which...
traveling with Sine, or is Sine staying behind?
No, Sine is staying behind.
Okay.
Would you like a scene with Sine before you go?
I just imagine Thabanon would, before leaving, would walk up to her and take her hand and say, I wish we could have met again on better terms.
Thabanon. Would it have been any different?
Probably not. But you... And he wipes a bit of hair out of her face. Would always be beautiful. I will take care of your child.
She looked as though she was about to give one of her retorts, but when you mention the child, you can see that the emotion that wells up kind of chokes that retort back down, and instead sincerity kind of returns to her expression, and she simply nods. Thank you.
He places the seed that she gave him into her hand. I will come back for this. Keep it with you. And he closes her fist around it. Remember what the fates have binded us. And then if she doesn't resist, he'll pull up her hand and kiss it.
You can tell that the weight of the seed in her hand holds more than just the weight of the object itself. She understands what this means, and that in that moment of her kind of taking all of that in, she doesn't resist in any way when you pull her hand up to kiss it. And you can see that she wants to chide you. She wants to rebuke your advance, but at the same time, she seems desperate for affirmation, for affection, for a kind touch. So she seems to allow it.
Thabanon definitely abuses that opportunity. And he peels his hand away from hers and keeps an eye on her for a long while as he backs up. And then as he turns, he looks off and sees the group just playing with this weird fucking kid. And then his eyes just sort of narrow. And he cracks his neck. and walks ahead.
So as you leave this temporary city behind you and set out across the sands towards the gray with this child in tow, as I said, there's several things that stand out to you along this first day of travel. The first of which, of course, is this child continues to age at an astonishing rate. By the end of the first day of travel, whenever you are settling in for a long rest, essentially, for night, quote unquote, he is to the point where he's taller than Darshepsa. His voice is beginning to crack whenever he speaks. He appears to be effectively entering puberty by the end of the day.
Does he still wail every time he sees me?
No. No, he does not. He seems to have grown accustomed to you throughout the day. But the other things that stand out to you about this child is that he learns incredibly fast. He is picking up on things that all of you are teaching him, whether inadvertently or purposefully. He's learning by watching you do things and is starting to emulate and fall into step with you as a group. At one point, Mato, you realize that he has your stone bird again. Just this first day of travel, this probably makes 10 times or so that he's managed to get it from you. And once again, he's kind of making it fly through the air and is speaking with it. Don't worry. We'll meet soon enough.
Listen, kid. It was cute earlier this morning when you were a baby. But I'm going to need that back.
But you don't do anything with it.
And you do?
Kind of stops like mid-flight. Yeah.
Playing make-believe is not considered doing something with it.
Just because you're old.
Just because you're old. And he... Listen. Why do you want this bird so bad? Maybe if you can give me a good enough reason, I'll let you have it.
You can see him churning the gears in his head as rapidly as he can. It's my friend.
What do you mean, your friend?
My friend from the cold place.
He just like furrows his brow. Cold place? But he just like shakes his head. Imaginary friends do not count as a good enough excuse. And he
She's
holds
not
out his hand.
imaginary.
And does she have a name?
Kind of shrugs. I don't know.
You don't know? Some kind of friend you are. You have a friend you don't even know their name.
If I keep it, I can ask. He kind of offers as if he's hoping that's enough of a bargaining chip.
How about this? I'll keep it during the day, and I'll give it to you in the evenings to play with. So I can watch you and make sure you're not breaking it. It's very important.
He nods his head and gives it to you. Mato, whenever the bird hits the palm of your hand again, you're reminded that there's this unseen etching in this bird, this stone bird. And you've likely run your fingers over this etching, even though it's not apparent in the surface. You've probably run your finger over this etching dozens, if not hundreds of times. But it's when it hits your hand this time that it strikes you that this rune is in the same shape as the marking on the back of this child. This crescent shape over a towering mountain peak.
You see Mato's eye, like he just blinks a few times and shakes his head. And he looks over to Okex, because I believe he was there when Okex had that visceral reaction to seeing the tattoo. And he's going to walk over to Okex. When you saw the child's marking on their back, you recognized it somehow. And he's going to hold out the stone to you. Hold this. He's looking at you with such intensity, holding out this rock to you.
Okex listens to what you say, and as you hold out the stone bird, they first point to themselves and say, Okex.
He nods and holds out the bird.
Okex takes it and at first doesn't react, is just kind of holding it, turning it over in their hand, and then one of those chitinous fingers kind of rubs up against that inscription, and the head would kind of snap up, and these praying mantis eyes would sort of focus in on you, Mato. And Okex would point to themselves, and then their eyes, and then this inscription. I have seen this. And then over their shoulder before.
He nods, and you see that his shoulders relax in relief almost, that you have seen this, and you see that it is the same. And you don't know what it means, right? I bought this at some market. It's always brought me good luck. But I could never let it go.
Okex sort of points at everyone, points at the inscription, their eyes. We're going to see this again.
Mato nods. I think you're right. This is fate, if I believed in something like that. And then he looks to Thabanon. He hasn't seen anything like that, has he? Any sign? Perhaps the others have. But when you shake your head, you see that Mato can't help but just smirk, just a little bit, just like. But he holds his hand back out to get the bird back.
Okex would go to hand it back and then would almost hesitate and would kind of pull it back just a little bit. Jeremy, is the stone that this is carved from a stone that I've seen before? Is this the type, the color, the weight of it? Would this be something that I would be able to discern?
Roll me a nature check.
Okay, I can do that. That's a 10 on the die plus 5, so 15.
Yeah, I don't imagine that it's a very uncommon kind of rock. Actually, I'm going to recant that. It is not a rock that you have ever seen before. The majority of the rocks that you have come across have more of a like a sedimentary kind of layered, browns, tans, beiges, more colors like that. This rock is almost entirely gray, which is pretty unusual for this area.
So Okex would, in pulling the bird back, would sort of suddenly kneel down on these long, gangly insectoid legs, and holding the bird up safely with one hand, would start kind of digging with two more, and would come up with a handful of these kind of crushed, sort of brown, orangish rocks, and would sort of hold them both in their hands, showing them to Mato.
They're different. Yeah, you're right. Now that I look at it, I haven't seen anything like this. No stone, and it's not painted at all. He looks closer. The boy says he can speak to the stone. The stone is his friend. She is his friend.
Okex hands the bird back to you.
Mato would take it and just look very confused. But just looks back to Okex. You'll let me know if you see anything else like this at all. I feel as though this is a puzzle.
Okex doesn't easily display human emotion, but there's a kind of excitement that is a light in their eyes, almost like, ooh, a puzzle. And they nod, point to you, and then to their head, and you'll be the first to know.
Thank you. And he is going to turn, and as he walks away, you can still see that he's like looking intently at this stone.
One of those rocks that you found just from the ground, Okex, finds its way to Yuma, who apparently is upset that he's not able to play with the bird for the moment, so instead he's going to entertain himself with some of these rocks. He seems to have found one that is almost perfectly spherical. It's very smoothed and is almost completely symmetrical. And he is holding it in his like upturned palm, kind of out in front of his face, and is just like staring at this rock with extreme concentration. And it's the first time he's held still most of the day.
Okex would be sort of half watching this. As they're traveling, they would have brought the two-necked sitar out and would be kind of plucking away on a tune with two arms and sort of holding the map with another arm, sort of like looking at the map and holding it up and like noting landmarks while still sort of strumming on this like very simple melody. And Okex would sort of very hesitantly tap Yuma on the shoulder and sort of give him a questioning sort of shrug. What are you doing?
Trying to. And as he's doing that, the rock spins in the palm of his hand. I did it!
Okex breaks a string.
Did you see it? Did you see it? I did it.
Okex would put the sitar back on their back and would make some strange sort of like clicking noises so that everyone would look in their direction. And he would point to Yuma.
What did it do this time?
I have a name, Sebanon.
Why don't you show everyone, Yuma? What's got Okex so excited?
Okay. Watch. He puts the rock kind of back in the center of the palm of his hand again, and he stares at it. It begins to rotate slowly at first, and then starts to speed up, and it's real wobbly, but then it kind of stabilizes, and then it spins faster and faster, and it actually levitates up off of the palm of his hand by a couple of inches and just hovers there.
What the fuck?
This is very impressive, child. Where did you learn to do this?
I don't know. Just, it just needed to spin. Look at it. Look how fast it's going. I think I can make it go faster. And he like kind of focuses again, and it starts to spin even faster.
Okay. Be careful. Try not to go too fast. This is powerful, but we must be careful.
Right. Right. But
Let the child
cool.
play its games. It's going to have a short life nonetheless. It might as well enjoy what time it has.
Sarath shoots you a dagger look, and she just sniffs. Bite your tongue.
Thabanon,
Don't pay attention to him. He knows very little.
Thabanon, you would be wise to mind your tongue. This is a person you're talking about.
He doesn't
It is
like me. It's fine.
It is a cursed child. It grows up and it is going to the mists. It's going to die. Such is the life we live.
And you are going to grow up, hopefully, and you will die. That is the way of all life.
You think I haven't accepted that?
And no one's sitting around here calling you a cursed being.
He only says that because
You'd
he
be
doesn't like
surprised.
himself.
Thabanon just
has
looks
wisdom.
at this kid. And what do you know of me, child, who was just born today?
That you're angry all the time. You're mad because things don't go your way. I understand.
Thabanon marches up to this kid and kneels down and looks him dead in the eye, and he says, I am mad because unlike you, I was never celebrated. My presence was never tolerated. I was cursed, much like yourself, except my curse caused these, and he gestures to Sarath and Matto, to spit on me.
I don't think
But
that's
you-
why they're mad at you.
Sarath looks down at him. Who are you to say that you are unknown by us when you know nothing of me?
Thabanon looks to you and he goes, you and your kind, you're all the same. You have cursed me out because of my blood, my heritage, my life. It has mattered nothing to any of you. I've had to fight for what I have. And you, and he looks towards Uma, will die for what you have. Such is the way. Now let's all move along.
I'm not going to die.
Thabanon just looks at the kid. And what are you going to do? Fly into
gonna-
the sky? Into the heavens?
I'm going to change the world.
The greatest mountain believes it can stand against the wind. Yet in time, it fades away like everything. And he picks up sand. We all become dust, child.
Sarath leans into Thabanon and she just whispers quietly, I think this child may be the wind.
Thabanon looks back at you and he goes, I have yet to believe that. Unlike all you blind sheep. And he walks away.
Oh, dramatic as always, Matto says as he walks up.
Sarath just looks down at you and says, that's very good with the rock. Keep practicing, but stay slow.
Okay. Thanks. You journey on through an area known as the Horn Spires. These are strange rock formations, given the rest of kind of what's across Tantharra. These are long, towering pillar-like rock formations. And unlike other rocks, like we were talking sedimentary-wise, where the lines, the grain, if you will, runs kind of horizontally or diagonally, these run vertically up these columns, and they have this very defined texture on the outside of them. Sometimes they even have strange protrusions that kind of shoot off at odd angles and are kind of bent and twisted in some ways. Many of them have seemingly broken over time and collapsed. But you realize that where you're journeying now is a part of the Hornspires that none of you have ever seen before. And all of you, if you would please, roll perception.
That's a 16 from me, Chief.
Okay. So, Okex and Mato. No one else seems to realize that there's anything different about this section of the Hornspires, but the two of you pick up on this thing. And Mato, you pick up on it almost immediately. You notice that some of these formations seem to have faces in them. Not 100% like a normal face, but there definitely seems to be shapes that look like facial features. And they seem to be on almost all of them. Yeah, they don't normally look this way.
Mato would stop and run his hands along the stone. This is different. This is very different. And he's like taking a step back, and you see him like looking up and around at these rocks. Stop. Everyone stop.
What is it, Mato?
This rock. It's different. It has changed. There are faces.
Where?
And he points to the features that he sees. It was not like this. It has not been like this.
Fabinon will reach forward and take his whip and hit the sand and let the wind carry this wave of sand up through the air and towards the rocks as he's casting Dispel Magic.
You cast your spell, the sand kind of flying into the face and the surface of this rock. It seems to fall against the rock and drop back down to the ground with no change.
All right. There goes one of 2 spell slots. And he says, "It is nothing."
Okex holds up one arm and points to themselves and then points forward. I can scout ahead.
Thabanon looks towards Okex and motions safe, careful.
Okex says, always. And I don't want to go super far ahead, Jeremy, but maybe like, I don't know, between 60 and 120 feet, just far enough forward where I get a better idea of what's going on amidst these pillars before we all head into them.
So, again, you see many of these formations. You've passed likely hundreds of them already, but these appear to be, I don't know, before all of these individual horn spires were almost chaotically placed. There didn't seem to be much of a rhyme or a reason to how or where they were located. Some of them are at kind of different angles and they're different sizes. They're not uniform in the way that they would be like crafted by hands of any kind, but like their placement is almost too regular. They seem to be more than anything, it almost seems as if they had gathered or were gathered kind of around this little central place that you find.
Okex would take note of that oddity and then quickly return to the group. And rather than try and explain that strangeness in a language they do not speak, Okex would simply sign to Thabanon, tread lightly. Something's weird.
Thabanon nods and looks back to the rest of the group. Move ahead with caution. Stay close.
Mato's gonna look to Yuma. You should stay in the middle of us. Do not stray too far.
Okay.
Just make it so that we can kind of surround him on all sides as we walk.
Sarath would like to just scan the ground for any sign of anyone else having been here or any like movement semi-recently. Any tracks or anything like that.
Okay. Make a survival roll.
Y'all mind if I use one of our domain dice? Because even though I'm good at that, my dice are rolling terribly tonight. And I
don't know. We
that
only have 39 of them, so let's be careful.
It's a precious resource, but okay, well that did marginally better. Survival, you say? Okay. So that's gonna be a grand total of 15.
Okay. Now, tracking in the desert is never an easy thing. The winds always blow here, and the sand never holds its secrets for very long. Or rather, never reveals its secrets for very long. So you can tell that there has been passage through here, but it doesn't look like it's been recent. Not within the last few days or so. You only know that it's probably a frequently traveled route because it is a route through the horn spires. There is passage that's possible through here. Ooh, thank you, Cole.
All right, that would be enough information and assuagement for Sarath to start moving forward cautiously.
Our Shepsa has taken up the position right beside Yuma. as close as he can be with while they're still traveling forward. He's almost fallen back into that, I guess, that easy feeling we had before, where it was Arrath would scout when there was danger, and he would be minding the animals such that they would have. It's kind of fallen back into that role again, letting her go forward, as well as Okex and Mato, while he guards the child.
I think Mata will be in the back, like furthest back, looking ahead and behind them as well, and around. Make sure no one sneaks up on them.
I imagine Thabanon is up front with Okex. He's got his shield on and his whip out, wrapped around his hand, ready just in any case. Tag teaming it.
You move forward in your new formation with more caution, with more preparedness. Okex out front. Eventually, you come across a bit of one of these horn spires that must have broken at some point and fallen to the ground. Again, these horn spires are probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100 feet in height or so, some of them. And when this fell, it looks like it fell and likely broke upon the ground. But the breaks in this are not what's the most interesting. What's interesting about this that you notice is that there's almost this, like a concave divot that's missing out of this section of rock, and that part of it is blackened. It looks like it's been eroded by wind and sand, the same way that everything else of these horn spires are. But this part looks like it was black before that happened. And the part that is black seems to have these strange, almost scaly pattern of deeper etchings in its surface. It reminds you very much of the way things look whenever they burn.
Okex would hold up one arm and then would tap Thabanon on the shoulder, point to this pillar, and sign fire.
Some sort of scorching. And Thabanon will slowly approach this and reach out to examine it.
Okex would stay close, but allow Thabanon to move forward, spear at the ready.
It's warm to the touch, much the same as any rock that you would touch. But these lines, these intersecting, it's not as even as a manufactured grid would be, but it's almost like a grid that is worked into just this area that's blackened. But like when you touch it, there's no soot. This has been like this for a long time.
Would there be any recognizable tie that Thabanon could trace this to in any of his travels? Like history or any markings he's seen before in his travels?
I think the closest thing that any of you would likely be able to draw a parallel between might be, there's a substance that isn't used very often in Tantharra, but the dwarves have this material called fungal wood. And it would be most similar to that, if Thabanon has ever come into contact with any of it.
Maybe he'll look back towards Darsheps's mace and see if there's any comparison there.
No, the head of Darsheps's mace is metal.
Okay.
Probably akin to like iron. This seems to be like rock, but like it was burned before it became solid.
That's funky. That's a bit funky. Thabanon will look back to Okex and just sort of motion no threat, maybe.
Okex would sign back, maybe, but with a bit of a sarcastic lean in the motions, like it's always maybe. And then they will continue moving forward, perplexed by that sight.
So you continue on. Your head's on a swivel. Still occasionally seeing one of these faces that seem to be all kind of turned inward towards this group, this area. But I think it's suddenly when Thebanon, you feel something hit the back of your head. And it's wet, like water, but almost like condensed sand. And when you turn around, you see this strange, white, crumbly substance. It's a lot like sand, but it's extremely cold to the touch. And as you touch it and handle it, it turns to water in your hands. And Yuma is stifling a laugh.
Thabanon just looks back and he goes, "What the fuck did you do? What the fuck did you just do? What is this?"
Darshepsa, beside the child, you can see he's like holding his hands together like this. And the space between his hands seems to be charged with some kind of magic, some kind of energy. And you watch as the air begins to, I don't know, crystallize almost. It forms this very strange white substance between his hands that eventually becomes a ball. And he kind of very carefully takes that in his hand, and then he throws it at Mato. Mato, you feel the same sensation, this wet kind of on the back of your head.
Does Mato see this? Like, does he see him throwing since he's behind Yuma?
Oh, you were back. Yeah, that's right. So you don't see what he's doing at first, but you see him turn around and hurl this thing at you.
Can you try and catch it? Could I make some sort of roll?
Ooh, yes, please.
Okay.
So make a dexterity save.
Okay. It's a 23.
You have no problems whatsoever dodging out of the way.
So as he kind of like holds out his hand, he wants to catch it.
With what you rolled, absolutely.
Okay. So he holds this in his hand, this ball, and you can feel the condensation begin he's gonna like smell it. He sees that it's like shrinking in his hand, and this clear liquid is coming out, and he just takes a bit of it, and he's going to taste it.
It tastes like water, like pure, cold drinking water.
What is this?
I
Yuma?
don't know. I don't know. He's like already making another one.
How are you doing that? What are you doing?
My friend told me how. And he's going to pick it up and he's going to hurl this one at Okex.
I would also... No, it just hits him. It hits Okex, just like... And Okex would look down at this like sodden... He would look to Yuma and just go...
Okay.
Can
Maybe he
you-
is the wind.
Can you create this this is water? And he's just like, he can't quite find the words to explain this phenomenon that is happening in his hands. Can you do more? Can you make it like this? And he holds out his hand with some of the melted water in it, and he holds it out. Can you do this?
Sarath was not real quick. Sarath was not keyed into this conversation at all until she heard the word water, and then she like snapped back, and she immediately is like reaching for this water satchel that she keeps. That's like anytime you can collect any that is anyone is giving away. So she like immediately like was ready for it.
I don't know. It's like this. It's so cold. And there's already like another one starting to accumulate and form.
Don't throw this one.
Okay.
Sarath will walk over to it, just staring at it, like holding this water satchel out. Like, here, place it in here.
Is there any water in the satchel already?
I'm guessing there's probably a little bit left from like filled up at the festival with whatever they were willing to give.
You can sense the water that's in the skin. Not that you would know what this is, but it freezes as you come near this space between Yuma's hands.
She is immediately like terrified and pulls it back, thinking that she's just destroyed her source of water. Like she sees it just bricked in front of her, and she starts like touching it, trying to see like is it solid? Is there anything left of it? Like, and then it's not until she starts feeling it like slippery on her warm fingers that she starts to relax and realize what must have happened, that it's like it's still there, but it's different now. Did you do this on purpose? How did you do this?
My friend told me how. She told me how to put my hands and what to do with my mind. And this is what's happened.
Do you know anything more about your friend yet?
No. He kind of like looks at at Mato with like a disapproving like glare.
You should give him your rock, Mato.
Shut up, Thabanon. Abaddon. He like looks over and he's
You
like
shut up.
scowling.
I can't believe I'm about to say this. I agree with Abaddon.
What the fuck?
No. We made a deal, the boy and I. He gets it in the evenings, and I get it during the day.
That was before we learned he could create fucking water.
He... You see Matto like open and close his mouth, like trying to say something, maybe something else.
That's when another voice disrupts this distraction. Not far away, out from behind one of these hornspire formations, the raspy voice. Otto, I have wandered the deserts for months now. Finally, I have found you. That's where we're going to take our break.
Hold up. What?
All right, so 5 to 10 minutes, probably closer to 10 minutes. Go to the bathroom, refill your drinks, kiss your spouse, smoke them if you got them, etc., etc. And we will be back in just a moment. So thank you so much, everyone, for all the love that you have shown tuning in this evening with us. Thank you as well for anybody who has donated bits and given away subscriptions and subscribed to the channel. It is deeply appreciated, as well as are the 5 people who are playing in this game. You guys are fantastic. I cannot wait to get to this next bit. So, without further ado, sit tight. We will be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back from our break. And the second half of tonight's episode 3 of Convergence, titled The Burden of Youth. So, you have found yourself in this kind of strange section of the Hornspires. These particular rock formations seeming to have faces in them. And strangely enough, that's not the oddest thing that you've encountered today, because the boy that you travel with now, Yuma, is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about a 15 to 16-year-old child at this point, and seems to have figured out how to summon water out of thin air. But more importantly, when he summons this water, it's cold. Incredibly cold. And as you were discovering this, what he calls a gift from his friend, a voice interrupted this distraction, calling specifically to Mato, and has said, "I have wandered the desert for these many months now. And at last I have found you." Mato, when you turn and look, you see, though it takes you a moment to recognize him, that there stands Ashki. His clothing and armor are singed at the edges, burnt, and he looks bad. He looks red, and there are blisters on his skin. His lips are chapped and cracked. He raises a finger towards you. You did this to me.
Ah, shit. Mato, looks over and smiles at Ash. Hello, old friend. It is so good to see you again. You're looking... Well, as you can see, this is not the best time to settle up any matters that you might have with, well, my tribe.
No, my matter is with you. You cheated me.
Listen. How was I supposed to know that water was tainted? I didn't know. I'm not the one who makes the waters. I just deliver them. And he's like, you can see that he's like slowly reaching down for his sword. I just deliver them, friend. I know you're upset, and I'm so sorry about what happened to you, but you have to understand, it wasn't my fault, and this is not a good time.
A good time? A good time? You will not dictate when I will get my revenge, Mato. You do not decide.
Please, I don't want to hurt you. Just
He's begun
take
crossing
cover.
the distance between you.
Yeah, his hand is fully on his sword. He's like backing up, but kind of away so that like he wants to angle himself to lead him away from Yuma. If that makes sense. So he's like kind of walking in like a C shape.
As he continues to approach you, his eyes begin to kind of glow with an orange light, akin to the sun's overhead. And he says, but this time when he speaks, his voice is very different.
I have discovered true desert power.
Thebanon, this is not
Yeah?
the first time you've heard this voice.
Oh no.
All right. We're going to just shift papers over here and slide right into initiative. So, he is able to act first. Oh, 2 bits of information. Both of them pertaining to things he carries on his person. One of which, at his belt, he has a lamp that is hanging. This lamp is very decorated and is ornate, but it appears to be made out of dread steel. The second, he also, like Okex, carries a Paduva knife. Seems to be the weapon he is brandishing. Okex, tell me how it is that you realize that this is the Paduva that once belonged to Kor.
I think that Kor used a specific kind of wrap on the hilt of this thing, because I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, but I imagine that the Paduva knives are essentially just like unworked teeth from these worms that are then like kind of wrapped up to be used as weapons. And so I think that Kor used, let's see, what would be an interesting kind of material to wrap it with? Maybe what are the lizard mounts called?
Badoshi.
So it's Badoshi hide that has been like tanned and made rigid, and so it has this this strange sort of gradient color with these like this like scaly leather wrapped handle, and Okex would sort of gawk at this as they realize.
With that as well, you would realize that this is not something that Kor would have parted with willingly. Okay. He stalks forward, this Paduva in hand. He is going to close with you, Mato, coming seemingly directly for you. And as he gets closer, you feel the heat radiating off of this guy to the extent that you can see the sand beneath his feet turning to glass with each of the steps that he takes. He brandishes this Paduva at you and is going to swing in very quick succession at you twice, Monto. What is your AC?
15.
Okay, he's going to hit with both. This is going to hurt. Just as a heads up.
Yay.
Okay. The first hit, you're going to take 5 points of piercing from the Paduva knife. But then you're also going to take 10 points of fire damage as the searing knife cuts into you. And you're going to take an additional 9 points of damage because you are his target of hatred. That is from the first hit.
Oh no.
The second.
Whoa.
Mhm.
Can I use domain dice? Is that
Sure, absolutely.
Yes, please.
On the attack rolls, or
The second attack, please.
okay, sure. It'll cost 2 domain dice. I'll re-roll, and that's going to turn it into a 13. So that should miss.
Yeah, that misses.
So this first slash cuts pretty deep into you, Mato, way deeper than you would probably have expected. And it burns as if he pulled this out of a fire.
Yeah, Mato, you hear Mato scream in agony, and I can imagine you and hear the flesh searing and cauterizing as it slices through his body. He doesn't even bleed from it. It just looks like this marred, burned piece of wound.
To add insult to injury, as it were, you are on fire. So if you don't take an action on your turn to put the flames out, it will likely do more damage to you. Burning hotter even still than his weapon, the look on his face is just one of pure seething rage. He seems to be mad with anger, like crazed, as he lashes out at you, Mato. Okay, Sarath, it is your turn.
Okay, so Mato was behind us. We're all kind of a little bit clumped together, and he kind of came from the side.
Yeah,
And
so
sort of and she drove, or he drove him. Mato drove him back a bit.
yeah, kind
Okay.
of off to the side, away from where the child is.
Okay. So how far away from us are they?
So Mato was moving, it sounded like at normal speed. So I would say probably about 30 feet.
Okay. Shoot. All right. So then Sarath is going to, and they're, oh man, Mato and this person are engaged in combat too, right? Oh man, this makes it tough. Okay, then Sarath will go ahead and use his hunter's mark to mark this this strange assailant as his quarry, or as her quarry, and pull out her longbow and try to make a arrow attack. That's an 8. That's a 14 to hit on that one. Yeah.
Does not bypass the tattered, burnt armor that this person still wears.
Well, seeing that first shot not be able to strike, she lines up the second one and apparently does a great job, because I just rolled a nat 20 on my second attack. So that makes me happy, especially because with hunter's mark, that's like an extra D6. It's just a D6 because I only used a first level spell for it. And then it's a D8 for the longbow. Okay, so that's 14 plus 3, so 15 plus what?
17.
Yeah. So
14 plus 3, 17.
I said that's what I
got
said,
you, bud.
isn't it? 14 plus 3, and then we add, oh man, well I rolled real low, so then that puts it at 18, 21.
Okay. Um, 21 points. Okay, so the first arrow misses, glancing off of the kind of leather armor that this person is wearing, but the second one must have just hit like directly underneath their arm or something in the gap where the armor is and buries itself almost up to the fletchings. And he kind of winces, and you watch as the fletchings of your arrow ignite and burn into ash.
Sarath says a quiet, thankful prayer that she changed her mind about running in with that new wrist sword. She'll try to move back a bit and get a little probably further away now that I've drawn his attention, potentially, even though it looks like he's probably going after Matto pretty hard. But I'd like to move further away from both Matto and from the child to try to get, try to split his attention.
Okay. Sarath has fired twice and is now moving to put some distance. In the meantime, Thabanon, it is your turn.
Thabanon is shaken to his core, hearing a very familiar voice. But seeing that there is a threat to Matto, as much as he doesn't really like the guy, he recognizes that it's not good for the unit if Matto falls. So he kicks his Badoshi and will ride towards this random dude, as far as he can tell, just coming out of the sands to attack Matto. How far is this guy away from me?
Again, they're only about 30 feet.
Oh, okay. So Thabanon's conflicted because he's really confused at the state of this dude and considering the voice he just heard. So he's going to try a different approach. He will leap off of his Badoshi, pull out his whip, and try to wrap the whip around the guy's legs because he wants to tackle him. He wants him to fall onto his face.
Okay, so that sounds like maybe a shove attack?
Yeah, he's trying to take his whip, wrap it around the dude's legs, and pull so that the guy is flattened.
Yeah, so you're just going to use one of your attacks to attempt a shove, which doing so you can try to push prone, which is essentially kind of what you're doing. Okay, cool. So since you're using your whip to try to do it and not just pure body tackling, go ahead and roll it as an attack roll.
Thank you. I have 8 strength. That is a dirty 20.
Okay, so you wrap your whip around this guy's legs, and at first, you don't think that you're going to be able to do it. You give it kind of a good yank, and nothing happens. This man, who's not very stout, seems to stand his ground, but you pull harder a second time, and it yanks his feet out from underneath of him, and he falls sideways into the sand.
Thabanon will keep him down and then look towards Okex and go, and then he'll go to the ground, pinned. Just like there are days of hunting Badoshi in the wilds.
That was Thabanon. Okex is up next.
Okex is stunned for a moment. They recall seeing this Paduva knife wielded by this stranger. They recall sitting on the back of one of Kor's wagons and Kor telling them, "It does not matter our past transgressions. It does not matter why Thrycreen like you and I have no tribe. Because they can never take these from us." And he would have that Paduva knife. "These belong not to the tribe, but to us. And as Okex recalls this memory and then hears the whistle from Thabanon, they shake their head and then urge their mount forward, kicking up dust behind them. And Okex will actually come up out of the saddle into a standing leap, 15 feet into the air, sun at their back, and descend upon this prone figure. I'm going to sneak attack his ass.
You have advantage on the attack because he is prone.
So that is 17 on the die with using my Paduva knife is +8, 25 to hit.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay, and then 9 damage on the blade, and then 7, 10 on the sneak attack, so 19 damage total as this Thrycreen, its sort of marred bronze carapace glinting in the sun, descends from this leap and drives the Paduva knife past the armor plates of this prone foe.
As you do so, Okex, this blast of heat escapes the wound, and you take 9 points of fire damage.
I'm going to go ahead and use my reaction to have that damage using Uncanny Dodge. And so, though the flames do scorch the chitinous plates of Okex's armor, Okex sort of like does like a little like dodge out of the way as the flames kind of skirt past.
As you have moved forward and delivered a blow to this foe, he is still very much alive and fighting. That brings us to Mato.
I just realized that I didn't use my uncanny dodge for that attack against me.
You can do so,
So-
if you'd like.
Oops. So question though, does that only applies to the, does that apply to all damage or just to the knife?
I don't know how it reads, but I would assume that it's the whole lot. But
Yeah, if it's all one, it's like a single amount of damage from a single source. So if the heat is coming from the knife, I would assume that it would have that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it just says to have the attack's damage against you. So it was all part of the same attack. Therefore, I would say it qualifies.
Okay.
That'll help.
Yes. You see Mato is, he just looks at Ashki, and he's prone right now. So he, all of a sudden, you see this whisper of a shadow behind Mato. You see this figure, and this figure slowly, as the smoke begins to form, you see that this person looks like Mato, but older, and could be related to Mato. And Mato brings out his sword, and while on fire is going to stab stab him, because he's in this, like, you see that almost like the shadow behind him is like puppeting him. Like when the shadow moves, he moves, and it's only like a second or two after, so it does look like this shadow is puppeting him as he hits.
Okay, and speaking of being on fire, you take 5 additional points of fire damage. Just whenever you're done with your incoming stuff.
Oh, he gets advantage, right? Because he's
prone?
prone still?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. because that was an 11. 22 to hit.
Absolutely.
And that is going to do 23 points of piercing damage. And then at the same time, he takes out his other sword at his other side, and as a bonus action, is going to do an offhand attack.
Okay, that
Which
one
is a
will be at
23 to
advantages
hit.
as well. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. For 3 points of piercing.
Okay. As you stab at Ashki twice, the first blow, again with your sword, opens this wound that's almost like staring into a scorch as this wave of heat blasts outwards at you guys and at you, and is going to deal 10 points of fire damage from the first. The second hit is going to deal 14 points of fire damage. This heat is extreme coming out of this person, if in fact he even is a person still.
Is this everyone who's surrounding the guy?
No. This is just Mato.
Okay, cool.
And Mato, what are your swords made out of?
One of the swords is a +1 sword. So I'm not sure how that would look in this world. Probably.
So iron is pretty common. Bronze is pretty common. There are bone and stone options as well.
I do think the one would be iron, more rare, but the other one I think would be of bone, the second one that he has.
Okay, so the first blade is the iron one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that weapon is under the effects of a heat metal spell.
Yikes.
So Mato, you are on fire, and your sword has heat metal upon it currently. Heat metal. The object is glowing red hot. Any creature in physical contact with the object, not this turn, but next turn will be taking fire damage. Use a bonus action on each of your subsequent turns to cause this damage again. If you're holding or wearing the object, you must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or drop it if you can. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that Constitution saving throw this turn, though. Let's see what the DC would be.
17.
Okay, so the DC was an 18. So this blade grows as hot as it was when it came out of the forge in your hand, almost instantaneously. Again, glowing like the orbs of his eyes. So just out of sheer involuntary reaction, you drop the sword into the sand, and immediately the sand around your blade starts to turn to glass. Okay, that was Mato. Darshepsa.
Darshepsa is standing there seeing all this happen and seeing Mato just being almost like obliterated really there with the fire and the heat. And without even thinking, he holds out his one hand directly towards Mato. The palm starts to glow and you can see that there's some sort of tattoo. It's like a dark, almost looks like a metal embedded in the hand, and it starts to glow, and it's in the shape of the symbol of Quena. And I am casting life transference. So as he does this and the hand glows, Darshepsa takes 17 points of damage. So you could see the hand as it glows, it also starts to blacken towards the elbow as Darshepsa takes this necrotic damage, but out of it shoots this brilliant light that heads towards Mato. And Mato, you take 34 points of healing. As Darshepsa just kind of grins and grimaces as of this pain he takes himself.
So, Darshepsa, you said that was necrotic damage that you took?
Yeah.
You're vulnerable to necrotic damage.
I am?
Because of your Dreadsteel mace.
Lovely. Okay, so I'll take 17 more. So, okay, so I'm vulnerable. Then does that double? Because it says I take this 48 necrotic damage, which can't be reduced in any way. And then the number and the target regain a number of hit points equal to twice the necrotic damage that I take. So if I'm taking 34, does Mato actually get 68?
Yes, I would say so.
Have 68. It's a brilliant light. But I think Darshepsa's arm is entirely blackened at this point.
Yeah. I mean, again, if a Dreadsteel mace is carried as a tool specifically for this sect, I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's pretty frightening, actually. Okay, that hurt more than I thought, but that's what I did, and I'm standing there. Yeah, that's all I can do at this point.
Okay. From behind most of you, where you are now engaged fully with this Ashki person, another one of these snowballs, larger this time, flies forward from where Yuma stands behind you and is going to hit Ashki. As it does so, you can see it impact and immediately start to like steam, and he recoils from it more than almost any of the rest of these attacks. It seems to almost evaporate or melt the area that it hit on this man. Okay, it brings us back around to the top. Oh, it is Ashki's turn. Okay. So nearby, we have Okex, Mato, Fabinon. The three of you, if you would please, roll dexterity saving throws. As this man opens his mouth and expels fire at the three of you.
Fabinon is 10 feet away from Ashki. Would that still count for this attack?
Oh, yes. Yes, it would.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I figured. Yeah. I think I'll take one of those domain dice, because that was a 3.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Ooh, way better. That's a 21.
13 on my save.
Okay. So, Fabinon and Mato, both of you passed. Okex, unfortunately, you did not. This is also going to hurt a lot. Okay. Give me just a moment.
Is this a spell by chance?
No.
Okay, cool.
It's taking a long time to roll this, Jeremy.
Looking forward to the new characters coming out.
Yep, I've got one. He's a giant. His name's Wodo. He's ready to go.
Oh, sweet.
Yep.
But you flip it for the sun side, so you call him like Dodo or something. Like, you
Dodo.
know, yeah, real
How is-
subtle.
How is Jeremy still rolling dice?
Oh no.
Oh no.
Okay. Full damage is 59 points of fire.
How could this happen to me? I'm down. Okex drops. They disappear in this flame, and when the flame dissipates, there's just a smoldering heap of chitin on the sand.
All right. Thabanon and Mato, both of you took half of that. So, what is it? 29? Mm-mm. What was the total damage? 59? 49? Something like that?
It was
59?
59 damage.
59. So, yeah, half of that would be 29. That's a good question. You're down, but not like dead, right?
Yeah, correct. Not enough damage to kill me outright. I'm just
I
dropped
didn't
to
think
zero.
so. Because all you guys have max HP for your levels, or you should.
Yeah, so I had taken a little bit of damage from stabbing, so I had 55 hit points left. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like bugs back on the menu, boys.
It suddenly smells like lobster, really strongly.
Okex is red for the whole rest of the time now.
Oh my god, he might be. I don't know.
All right. Oh, Jake brought up a good point. Has your uncanny dodge reset?
I don't think until my I get my reaction on my turn. So
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
So yeah.
So I don't have my
yet.
reaction because I was also I was thinking I was going to move away from him using my skirmisher, but that cost my reaction as well. So.
Right.
Also, you can't use uncanny dodge because you had to make a saving throw because it wasn't an attack.
It wasn't an attack. Correct.
Oh,
yep.
good
You're right.
point.
You're right.
Very good point. Okay, so he has just spouted this gout of flame that encompasses Mato, Thabanon, and Okex. Thabanon and Mato seem to recover from the worst of it. However, Okex does not. He drops to the ground in a crumple. Again, not to add insult to injury, but Mato and Thabanon, you are also on fire. Okay, so we're just gonna move right along now.
It's because I'm so hot.
That's one way to look at it. So, Arrath, it's your turn.
Oof. Seeing this, oh man, I totally forgot my Colossus Slayer thing. All right, I still have my Hunter's Mark up. So Arrath is going to hold her position, because it does not seem wise to get any closer. And actually, she might even move a few, like 10 or 15 feet further away. And she's gonna knock another arrow and take another shot, hoping to bring this guy down. She'll try to move like maybe nah. I won't move further away because I want to be close enough that I can get to Okex if I need to sooner rather than later.
And I would imagine that he probably got to his feet, so you wouldn't have disadvantage on this.
Okay. Well, it's an 18 on the die, so that's going to be on my 26 with my longbow.
Absolutely.
And D8 and D6. That's 8 for 11 points of damage overall.
Do me a favor, Austin.
Yes.
Roll percentile dice.
Okay.
I had an idea that might be kind of cool.
Oh, and I also have my Colossus Slayer since he's below his hit point maximum.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I would get another D8. But, that is a 66%.
Okay. When you shoot your arrow, you were careful in doing so, but it flies past Yuma. And as it does so, he reaches his hands out, and you watch as the arrow passes between his hands, and it comes out the other side almost entirely white. So what was your total damage?
With the Colossus Slayer, the extra point that added, that made it 12 points of damage.
12 all up?
Yeah, 12 all up.
Okay. You watch as this arrow hits, and like the snowball that was thrown by Yuma before, it almost like erodes or eats away like a section of his body where this arrow has hit, and he just kind of like
Arrath is immediately like catches on to this, and she runs closer to Yuma for the second shot, and she just kind of holds her arrow out, trying to like make sure that like, you know, as she like kind of prepares herself and pulls it back, that she's like leaving it in a good spot for him to do his stuff on it. And she'll take another shot, and that is an 18 to hit.
will also hit.
Yes. Awesome. And I already used my Colossus Slayer, but I still get my Hunter's Quarry. Ooh, that's 15 points all up.
Please describe to me what it looks like as the second shot kills Ashki.
Oh, hell yes. So this second arrow has been lingering longer in between Yuma's hands, and this white sort of ice that has grown on this arrowhead is just crackling and radiating with this cold energy as it strikes deep into this man, this Ashki. It seems like it just almost like out of cold just melts away the armor that is protecting him. And as it reaches the center of him, this steam starts to just pour out from every orifice until eventually he's just overtaken by this kind of boiling from within, as the water seems like it spreads throughout his superheated body until he just kind of pops and drops limp.
He falls into the sand, and his dying gaze looks up at Mato and again says, I will haunt you forever, Mato. And mid-sentence, his eyes kind of roll to look instead at Thabanon.
The child. I want the child.
And then his jaw falls off, and he ceases to move.
Darshepsa would run to the fallen body of Okex, hand still glowing from the last time, and placing it down on his body. I'm going to cast Cure Wounds 2nd level. Because of who I am, I don't have to roll the dice. You just get maximum hit points back if you're at 0. So cure wounds, level 2. 2d8 plus 3, so that's 16, 19 points.
Sarath is still kneeling next to Yuma, and she just kind of like gently turns him around. Like, are you okay? Are you all right? Good work. Good work, my child.
I think so. I think so. Oh, is he dead?
I am sorry to say I think so.
What was wrong with him?
I don't know, but he was dangerous. We needed to protect ourselves. Sometimes out here, you have to protect yourself, and sometimes you don't get an answer to why.
I understand.
Then Sarath immediately walks over to Matto. Why did he do this? What is happening?
Matto is like trying to put himself out as he is on fire. But once he's smoldering a little bit, he looks to you, Sarath, and you can see that there is this guilt behind his eyes. Just this sorrow. But he still just says this barely veiled thing that he doesn't you can tell he doesn't even believe, is just, well, didn't you see him? He was a monster, crazed beyond his mind.
Yeah, she would look at you with a, like, really, that's your line sort of look, and then just walk back to Yuma.
Thabanon rushes forward after shaking from hearing the sound, from hearing the voice commanding him, and he rushes over to Okex and Darshepsa, and he's like, "No, come on, Okex, no, not you, I can't lose you."
Calm yourself. Okex will be fine. It was not yet his time.
Okay.
And Okex sits up abruptly, sand sliding off of them, and they immediately reach up and check to make sure that their one remaining antenna is there, and they kind of ease out a breath. There's like a it's not like a scar, but it's like, I mean, it's like black and red, like it's a like burned lobster shell, that's sort of like, there's like a central point, and then it kind of spider webs out where the fire like struck and washed over Okex, and they kind of like run their fingers over this new damage to their exoskeleton. They look to you, Darshepsa, and just like nod to you. And much like Okex has said countless times to Thabanon, the countless times Thabanon has saved Okex's life, this strange bug points to you, Darshepsa, points to themselves, and then makes a walking motion. Where you walk, I walk.
Darshepsa nods. Places the hand that had just healed you on one of your hands, as kind of I understand, and then proceeds to help you stand.
And immediately after standing, Okex would look over to the body of the foe, would stride over and would roughly roll the body over and begin rummaging, finding the Paduva knife, and then sticking the knife in their bandolier, and they would lower themselves to be in this fallen enemy's face, and there would be this insectoid screech that would emit from those mandibles. Spit would fly out, flecking the face of this corpse. And then Okex would stand and walk away.
Thabanon will place a hand on Okex's shoulder and gesture to him. Okay.
Okex again would do the nod, head shake, and then would pat both knives. I'm not, but I have these.
Thabanon will nod and go, we talk other time. And then he puts his head to Okex and goes,
Darship's seeing Okex and Thabanon kind of walk away, would turn to the other two to see how they're doing, and his eyes would fall on Arrath. Was she hurt? That's the look he's kind of giving Arrath. He's like looking her over to make sure she's okay.
Yeah, she would catch your eyes, just give a quick shake of the head. You would recognize, like, no, I'm fine, didn't touch me. And she, but you can see that her eyes are following Thabanon. She catches your eye for a moment, but then she goes immediately back to just staring at him.
And how is Mato looking? He can walk?
Mato looks very burned. Very singed. I don't know that he has any hair left anywhere.
I like your new do. Matches mine. We should find a place to rest. Not here, though.
We should get away from here.
We need to see if he had any water. I find it unlikely based on everything about him, but we should search the area, see if he had a camp, if he had supplies. It's dangerous out here. We should take everything we can find. And Arrath would just immediately start like trying to retrace his steps to where he emerged from and see if there's any sort of path that he may have left to, if he was staying anywhere, if everything he has is just on his person.
Mato would just call out, don't drink his water. It's probably not good.
Searching back a ways, Arrath, you eventually find the steps of this man arriving here almost just out of the deep desert. Just one of the dune seas. They just kind of trail off until they go up and over one of the dunes that you can see and disappear, more or less, just kind of into the distance. It seems like he had walked straight here. There's no camp.
She'll leave it. She'll leave it at that. That seems enough information.
Right.
Enough evidence that he hasn't been camping anywhere nearby.
It does not appear to be the case. And he does not seem to have much of anything on him at all, except for the armor and clothing and weapons that he was carrying, except for that dread steel lamp.
Yeah, Darshipsa is not leaving that behind. That does not belong to him.
All of you, if you wish, rather, can roll either an Arcana or a History. Is Sarath rolling? No? Okay. So, Thabanon and Darshepsa, both of you, through your knowledge of history, you've read about this or something at some point, you know that this is not just a normal lamp that happens to be made out of dread steel. Something about the particular markings or design of this item leads you to believe that this is the fabled Lamp of Barakar. You know that this lamp somehow is connected with the city of the dead.
That would steel Darshepsa's resolve to relieve this body of this lamp. It needs to be in better hands. I will attempt to touch it.
Be careful with that thing.
Okay, so you bend down and take it, Darshepsa, into your possession.
Yes.
Okay. You now
I breathe a
have
sigh of
the
relief
lamp
when I don't burn
of
up.
Barakar.
Yes. I don't turn into flames all of a sudden. I'm happy.
See.
Thanks.
We should find camp. We need to rest.
Yeah, so Arrath will start trying to scout for a reasonable place for us to bed down or at least take a meal and a short rest. I don't know exactly what our plan is, but I'm kind of unclear about what time of day it is, I guess.
Yeah.
The
Isn't
scorch should be approaching soon, right?
Yes, yeah. Especially after this skirmish has transpired and, you know, scouring the area and, you know, picking his body clean and stuff like that. I would say you guys are probably within maybe an hour or so of the Scorch's approach.
Yeah, as soon as we have found a somewhat reasonable location, Sarath will start pulling out her like leather tent covers and start digging out the ground with her mold earth. And she and her Badoshi are kind of in sync with this, where she uses like the mold earth and it's like digging itself, because they're kind of used to being out in this. And she'll start trying to make a larger area than she normally does, so that they can all kind of, shelter together underneath a few kind of connected tent flaps.
Yamato would help with his Badoshi. And kind of work also to maybe connect the tents in some way. I would imagine that these tent flaps, because they're, if this is okay, because they're so versatile, that they probably have ways to be tied together and untied like really quickly to make like varying sizes of tarps and stuff to fit like whatever situation for the Scorch.
And overlapping so that there's no holes.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine it's kind of like an overcoat kind of thing where you have the underflap and then like something to secure over top of it. So he would work on doing that to create one that's big enough. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and your people have been doing this for so long that these tents have kind of been designed to have this modularity to them, to be able to form these larger structures. So it's definitely within reason. When you finish, Mato, you find that Yuma has your bird again. And this time, he's kind of carrying it around, and is, again, just kind of almost like petting it, as if it were a real bird, and just talking to it. Doesn't seem to be playing with it as a toy nearly as much. But, again, at this point, the kid's approaching 16, 17 years old. But he's definitely talking to it again.
I think Mato just sighs resignedly and... Does your friend have a name yet?
I haven't gotten her name, but she told me another name. She said, I don't know what it means, but she said Tahoma waits in the lamp? I don't know what that means.
You see Mato just stop, fingers, body rigid. And he stops and he's going to drop everything and he wants to rush towards Darshepsa and ask him, where is that lamp?
I've carefully put it away.
I need to see it.
But why?
Please, can I just see it? Can I just look at it? Or is... I need to see it. He corrects.
Darsheps is looking towards the sun's. How much time do we have before the scorch is upon us?
Half an hour? 15 minutes?
All right, but we
It'll
must
only
be
take
quick.
a moment. Only a moment, yes.
So Darshepsa would turn to the bag that he's put it in and carefully pull out this bundle of cloth that he had wrapped it, and carefully unwrapping it such that he doesn't jostle it. He would hold it out to Mato.
Mato's not going to touch it, but he wants to look inside the lamp.
So looking inside, it doesn't appear to be anything about the lamp that seems extraordinary. It seems empty. It doesn't appear to have any oil in it or anything.
What are you looking for?
Oh, okay. Mato's going to leave. He's going to head straight towards the boy, Yuma. And he's going to hold him by, his clothes.
He kind of holds the bird kind of out back behind him at his arm's length.
Where did you hear that name?
What? What
Who
name?
told you? Who told you that name?
She did.
Who is she? Mato's yelling.
Darsheps has followed Mato, so is right there.
Mato, you need to quiet yourself. We don't know who else is around.
I think a better question to ask is who was he?
I don't want to hear from you right now. I saw what that thing said to you. We all heard it. You stay quiet.
What it said to me, I do not understand. But what I want to know is why that figure had a problem with you.
Mato's staring at Yuma.
Yuma's
What is her
terrified.
name? Ask her. What is her name?
Okay. I'll ask.
Mato, what has got into you? What is this about?
You see that Mato suddenly looks around as if he kind of realizes where he is. He knows of my brother.
your brother.
Yes.
Trouble befell him this time.
He is dead.
I see. What did Yuma say to you?
He said he was in the lantern.
It is a lantern from the city of the dead. So there could be truth in this. Child, what do you know?
I just know what she told me. She said that Tahoma is in the lamp. That's all I know.
Who is she?
She's my friend. He kind of like holds the bird forward as if like that explained it. Should I ask her what her name is? He kind of
Yes.
looks between Mato and
Yes.
Darshepsa.
Yes, please, child.
But in the meantime, we have to get he like almost like tosses Yuma like into the hole that they had built. Not like aggressively, but just kind of like a light toss. We should take this under protect ourselves from the scorch.
Yes. We have much time to talk while the scorch is upon us. Inside. And Yuma, please. Talk to your friend.
He kind of nods and begins conversing with the bird. After a moment, he brings the bird back to Mato, almost apologetically, but with a little bit more attitude than a sheer apology, and kind of extends the bird back in Mato's direction. Her name is Senefret.
That means nothing to me. Keep that cursed bird.
He kind of looks like this was not the response he was expecting. Okay. And he kind of like tucks it into his belongings. She says to find your brother that you have to rub the lamp. And he walks away.
Just we wait until the scorch has passed to investigate the truth of that claim.
Okex Mato. I would see to your wounds while we're in the scorch. And when we have time, Darshepsa would actually give them each, he would take out his healer's kit and spend one use on each of them. And I took the healer feat, so they get a d6 plus 4 plus hit points equal to their maximum hit dice. So I guess that's 6, right? So d6 plus 10. So 12 for Okex and 13 for Mato.
Mato looks from Arrath and then looks at Thebanon. Who was that voice? Arrath has a point. It was talking to you, wasn't it?
We're not going to distract from the fact that this person knew who you were. He knew your brother?
He did not know my brother. But you are distracting. That voice knew you.
Well, I did not know it.
Can Mato make an insight check?
Yeah, I would say so. Thabanon.
Yeah, like
Can I make an opposed check?
You can make an opposed roll, whatever skill you see being fit.
can I aid Matto with my skepticism?
Ooh, oh man, I don't
Two
know.
people being really, really, really.
Hang on, buddy. Hang on.
suspicious.
Step aside. Hang on. Let's just
Yeah.
put our heads together.
I think we're gonna keep this one straight 1-1 right now.
Okay. 18.
I also got an 18.
Oh, damn.
Okay, so at my tables, a tie goes to the aggressor. So, Mato, you definitely suspect that this is not quite the whole truth.
And so again, Thebanon, I see that you are skirting around the truth and to take your own responsibility for things yet again. I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised to hear you insult me yet again. I know not of this voice.
I would not have to insult you if it wasn't so easy.
We may be allies on this trip, Mato, but once it is over, we can settle our differences out on the wastes. You don't have to believe me, but I'm not going to stand here and listen to your bullshit and walk away.
The tiny hole that we're all sharing.
To the other
Oh,
side.
Thabanon, I will say, Thabanon has his own hole, and he slams the door because he's going to his room.
Mato looks to Sarath and just shakes his head. He is lying.
I don't trust that one. You seem to have more history with him, but well, I'll keep an eye on him, and I hope you will as well.
Okex
Yes.
is like sitting between you two, just like
Like a kid when his parents are fighting.
yeah.
I like him.
All you need is the bag of chips. Just
As they sit in this hole, Sarath pulls out just a little hunk of some sort of dried meat, and the little Sakara emerges again from like the folds of her robe to nibble on this jerky. As she just sort of like pets it, waiting for the scorch to pass, as she generally always passes the time kind of conversing, not literally conversing, but hanging out with her little pet basically.
You're muted, Jackson.
Thabanon wishes to do something before the scourge passes.
What you got?
So Thabanon has set aside his own little domain for himself so he can privately meditate. And as he does so, he takes his whip and wraps it around him on the ground in a full circle. And he gets down on his knees and raises his hand above the whip, and his tattoos will glow that bright poison green, and a bit of electricity will send from his hands into the whip, where all of its markings will light in the same color as his tattoos. And he will then place his hand on the sand ground and place his forehead directly towards the ground and speak. Mighty Dole, Scourger of the Wastes, Speaker of the World,
Master of the deep, Lord of all above and below the earth, hear my call. Let my words reach you through these forsaken sands. Your loyal champion calls for your wisdom.
A voice. Abaddon. A voice that is almost as familiar to you as your own. Responds to you in your head.
Bring me the child.
Abaddon pauses. What do you wish? What do you want from him?
There is no reply.
Where do you want him brought?
Continue your journey. I will be waiting.
Will you grant safety to Okex? And will you promise Sine to me?
Do as I ask, and you will want for nothing.
Then for this, mighty doe. I am forever your loyal servant.
I think that is where we're going to end this session.
Oh, shit.
So,
Yay!
Wait, Lebanon's the BBEG. I knew it.
What?
It's gonna be like X-Men: The Last Stand, but with Okex and Thabanon instead of Dark Phoenix and Wolverine.
And with better writing, hopefully.
we'll see. Everybody, thank you so much. This was amazing. This was such a great session, and I'm really excited to figure out where the rest of this is going to end up. So I'm going to pass things over to my players so that they can give any parting words, say goodnight, etc., plug anything else that they would like to plug, and then we're going to call it an evening. So we'll go in reverse order from the top. So we're going to start with Karen.
Oh, again, what an amazing session. You guys are all amazing. I just love this game so much. And I'm in that position again where we now have to wait a whole month to find out what happens with this part of the story. But we get to look forward to the other half in 2 weeks, which is so exciting. So this is amazing. I love this so much. Oh, I have a lamp to rub. Woohoo.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, next we have Matt.
Hey everybody, I'm Matt. I run a YouTube channel called A Fistful of Dice, and I make stuff over at Absolute Tabletop. This was such a fun session, and I think the main conflict for Okex is going to be that they just want to be best friends with everybody, and that's not really possible in this party, so we'll see what ends up happening with that. But super fun combat, really fun out exploring the desert, and we've got a like magic kid with us, so shit's nuts, man. I'm really excited about it. Thank you for having me along, Jeremy.
Absolutely. All I can think of is watching Okex and Thabonon's relationship and where it's headed. At some point, Okex is going to have to say, "Lisa, you're tearing me apart." I can't wait.
Oh, hi, Thabonon.
Oh, hi, Thabonon. I did not hit her. I told you,
I did not kill her. It's bullshit.
It's bullshit. Oh. If only we can elevate this game to the room status. No. Next up, Sarath. Austin.
Oh, hi, doggy. I always get so excited whenever the crazy Darth Vader voice comes out. Like, I get so giddy, and like these games get me like just like more than anything else, and I get so excited getting to be a part of them. And this child is a freaking scary thing, and all of that wind stuff made me so happy, like all of that. And Jackson, like virtual high five for that callback. That was one of those like perfect moments that brought it full circle for me and made me very happy. So I am super excited to see where this goes in 2 weeks, and to see where this goes next month, because both sets of these characters are honestly like two of my favorite characters I've ever gotten to play, and two of my favorite characters that I've gotten to like develop and care about. As like I really want to just highlight the amount of work that Jeremy puts into these games, because there is so much under the surface that we know about our characters because of what Jeremy has provided to us, and because of the questionnaires he's given us, and because of the space he's given us to create these characters. And so it just makes it much more interesting to play much more fleshed out characters that you feel like you know. And just before the game even started, I was like, it was nice to be like, oh, I'm locked into, like, I know what these two people are and what they want. And so like there's something really fun about that, and it's very much due to the work he put in. So I really appreciate it. So thank you guys all. I'm super excited to get into this the next couple sessions.
Thank you, Austin. I appreciate that. And again, that work was assigned by me. It was given by all of you. So you guys all gave me incredible material to work from. So thank you for that. Next, we have M.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what the others have said, and this was so great. This is such a great game. It's so fun to see how different everyone is from one side to the other, and it's so cool to see. You can see the grave that you've dug with the information that we've given you, and then just like the little pushes that Jeremy gives. It was like, you're just suffering from your own actions. These are your consequences. So yeah, and I love seeing, that's like, I think one of my favorite things in a game. Two things is when the DM brings your backstory to light, and when you have a really cool interaction with each of the players and have a really different and diverse bond with each one of them. And I think we have achieved that, and that is so cool. So this is like, yeah, the perfect game. So thank you for having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Again, this wouldn't work if all of you hadn't brought so much fantastic material up front, and if you didn't bring so much buy-in at every session. So that's why this is working. So thank you very, very much for being those kinds of players. I had the feeling that all of you were, and I'm really happy that this group has turned out to be the individuals, as well as a fantastic unit. This is a really good chemistry, and that's awesome. Speaking of really good chemistry and awesome, last but certainly not least, Jackson.
Gee. Shucks. Thank you so much, Jeremy. I'll just say what everyone else has said. This game is awesome. Oh my God, doing the emotional and mental gymnastics of hopping from the two sides is so insane, but it just gives such great perspective on how each of our characters are interacting with each other in different ways and the weird relationships that are so freaking flipped. The child and his connection to the shaman from the other side. Oh my God, it's interesting to watch this all come together. It's so wonderful. This is such an awesome game. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for all the hard work you've put into this. Thank you, everyone else, for being so freaking cool to role play with. This has been so awesome. I shout out to all the fans. I would love to get a petition started to get Tommy Wiseau to play Thabanon in the upcoming Convergence miniseries. I'm sure Netflix is going to pick it up at some point. But speaking of a series you guys can all watch, or listen to rather, right now is a little thing called Maelstrom, a beautiful D&D podcast that I run as a DM. If you guys are interested in listening to me talk, then check us out on Maelstrom, which I have posted in the chat right now. As for the rest, thank you all so much. This has been so much fun. I look forward to this every other Wednesday. And oh my God, how will things heat up even more? You know, I had to do it to him. Love you guys.
I just wanted to say one more thing real quick, that the thing that is really incredible about these games and the games that Jeremy runs in general is that these are the only games I've ever played in that don't make me feel like I'm describing some insane manifesto when I tell them to my partner or my friends. They're the only games that have enough of a like emotionally coherent through line and plot that like the people that I tell them to are like, oh, then what happened? Like, where was the kid from? Like, I don't feel like a nut bar telling my spouse about this. So like, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you.
You're welcome, I guess.
I'd also like to echo Austin. A thing he did last epilogue that I want to do is check out Babylon Berlin. It's a great German show that's on that you can find on Netflix right now. So there you go, baby.
Excellent. Cool. Well, everybody, thank you so much. D&D and German Netflix recommendations. Welcome to what we're all about here in Convergence, everyone. Yeah. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for just making this game so much of a joy to run and put together for you. And for being good sports about me torturing you with the stuff that you gave me. So I love my sadists. So speaking of love, thank you everybody who watched, whether you watched live with us tonight or whether you may be tuning in the future, whether you are tuning in the future here at MiniTerrainDomain or over on my YouTube channel, the Erasmus Expeditions. You can check the name out up in the corner over there. I should have this episode uploaded probably Friday. So yeah, I appreciate it very, very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks when things are going to get a little chilly as we head back to Hettust. And then a month from now, we will be back with these characters with the third and the final full session with these characters. So, love you guys. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the week. And until next time, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.